Stockyards Act. In fact, these are the most important amendments to the Packers and Stockyards Act since it was first enacted. Again, it's essential also that our antitrust laws are once again enforced effectively to block excessive economic concentration and anti-competitive actions. So I'm going to work with Secretary Vilsack and Attorney General Holder to provide for more cooperation, coordination, and antitrust enforcement between USDA and the Department of Justice. Now, on country of origin labeling, the good news is we've succeeded in finally seeing the law put into effect after years and years of effort. We finally got country of origin labeling in there. Bad news is that there are still shortcomings and glitches in the regulations issued by the Bush administration. I will say this forthrightly. If meat is solely of U.S. origin, it ought to be so labeled so consumers can know that. And we're going to try to get that done this year. Lastly, on energy, I share your vision for moving ahead to aggressively develop and deploy renewable energy technology. We've seen dramatic increases in the production of biofuels and wind power. As a matter of fact, Iowa's now number 2, I'm told, in wind power. Well, I don't know if that's true. It's at least number 2 per capita in wind energy anyway. But also the production of biofuels. We included in the new Farm Bill several new initiatives to promote this for biorefineries, biomass crop assistance, on-farm systems. A key objective of ours in the Farm Bill was to enhance the opportunity, get this, to enhance the opportunity for producer-owned and locally owned enterprises to promote diversified ownership and control of renewable energy production. In other words, not just for the big companies to come in, but let's have co-ops and let's have farmer-based systems out there, community-based systems. And in order to do that, we have got to have both a renewable electric standard, national electric standard, but we need to invest in a national electric grid. Now, Al Gore's been talking about this for some time. We need a national electric grid. No one state can do it. No one power company can do it. Think about it like the interstate highway system. Think about it like that, where it would be all over connected all over the country. It would be a highly efficient energy system, transfer system, so that if you've got some wind generators in North Dakota, solar collectors in Arizona, hydroelectric power, maybe low-head hydro in some places, you could actually put energy into that system. And they could wheel it, and if you're producing wind out in Colorado, Lee, they could ship it to Los Angeles or to Dallas or someplace like that. And that means then that small producers then could produce electric energy, put it into that national grid. And then you would really allow true economics to take over so that you would have the economics of solar energy in the places where the sun shines a lot, or wind energy where we have a lot of that, or hydroelectric. Yes, even nuclear energy could be put into that. Biofuels energy, biomass energy, all of this could be put into that national electric grid. I know Al Gore's been talking about this for a long time, and I think it's time that we get on with that and start building. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of time, but I'll tell you, it is one of the secrets, one of the real secrets to our becoming energy independent in this year. Now, on biofuels, as you know, we have a renewable fuel standard, 36 billion gallons by 2022. To meet this, we're going to have more biofuels. The first and most important thing that can happen right now is for the EPA to raise the gasoline allowance to more than 10% and to get it up to at least 15% right now for ethanol blends. And then we got to get Detroit to start making flexible fuel cars. Look, you know, if Detroit's going to keep coming in and asking for more and more money, we ought to tell them we got to do a few things. You know, Dick Lugar and I have got a bill in to say that they have to produce 90% of their cars and light trucks must be flex fuel by 2013. Now, folks, that's not a heavy lift. Brazil now produces 100% of their autos and light trucks that are flexible fuel. Detroit could do it next year if they wanted to, and I think, if they're going to keep coming with their hand out, we ought to grab them by the wrist and say, okay, do this. Make all of your cars and trucks flexible fuel. That way you can go in and you can use 10% or 12% or 15 or 25 or E85, whatever you want. And that way then we can really ramp up the demand and the use of biofuels in our country. So that's another thing we've got to do is to make sure that they have flexible fuel vehicles. Well, those are just some of the things I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about one other issue here, trade. We always hear about free trade, free trade, free trade. Well, I've never really been comfortable with that. I believe in fair trade. You see, how free is it for farmers here to compete with countries that have no minimum wage laws, they have no health enactment laws, they have no retirement systems, they pollute like the dickens, they don't follow any environmental laws whatsoever, they employ child labor, and we're supposed to compete with that? It's about time that we had a president, and finally we got one, and President Obama, who recognizes that our farmers and our businesses are at a big disadvantage when other countries can operate with lesser standards for how they treat their workers, care for the environment, and protect human health. So again, right now, the time is to start changing that. If countries want to trade with us, they got to meet some minimum standards. I don't say they have to do everything exactly like us, but they ought to be on a track. They ought to be on the track of increasing their standards for their people. And I will say this about the Doha round. I wrote President Bush in December, 21 other senators did, and said it's not balanced. Doha round was not balanced. It's an imbalance, and quite frankly, I don't know if it's going to start up again, but for Doha to succeed, it has to incorporate what I'm talking about, fair trade, not just free trade. Now, I said that was the last thing I was going to talk about. There is one other big issue that everybody's talking about where we had the first meeting in the White House on it last week. I'm on the Health Committee. I also chair the Health Appropriations Committee, too. And that issue is reforming our health care system in America. We've got to get it done. Now, a lot of people think about this in terms of city folk. But it's those of us who live in rural America that are most discriminated against when it comes to the lack of health care. I still live in a town of 150 people. I still live in the house in which I was born. Hell, I haven't gotten very far. But anyway, but we know what it's like out there. We don't have the health care professionals. It's hard to get them. Medicare reimbursements are always the lowest in rural areas. We can't keep enough hospitals going and get the reimbursement rate for our hospitals. Our health care is always at the lowest end of that spectrum in rural America. So whatever health care plan that we come up with, I'll just say two things. One, we have to make sure that in this cost, coverage, all that kind of stuff they're talking about, that we have provisions in there that recognize the special needs of rural America, where we don't have a lot of people congregated in one area, but we have health needs nonetheless. We have needs for visiting nurses for pregnant women so that babies are born healthy. We need early screenings and intervention programs for our children in our small towns and communities. We need dentists. We don't even have oral health care in many of our small towns and communities in rural America. And the reimbursement rates, as I mentioned, need to be made more fair in rural. We need to improve the National Health Service Corps and give more loans and grants to kids when they go to college. Then they have to practice in rural America for 5 or 6 years after they get out, just like in the military. When they got ROTC, we have the National Health Service Corps. We'll pay for you to go to college. You have to spend some of your time serving in underserved areas. So we have to just make sure. We just have to make sure that those of us who live in rural America are not forgotten about when it comes to health care. And there's one other thing. This year is the reauthorization of the Child Nutrition Bill. That's our school lunch, school breakfast, and the Women, Infants, and Children's Supplemental Feeding Program. Okay, so we're talking about health care reform. One of the centerpieces for that health care reform